Hello. Today we will be learning about the machine setup for Workcenter 401 in the Grille Expand area. The Weldon double-sided expander is a heavy-duty manufacturing machine that takes aluminum and copper tubes placed inside grills and cores and expands them slightly by inserting long metal rods into each of them. This process permanently fixes the fins so they are evenly spaced apart for proper airflow when operating in the field. The 46B side of the machine, for Workcenter 401, is used to expand tubes for 7mm wide grills that go on the front of trucks. Grills with end pieces of metal, called headers, on them will have to be sent to the oven to make sure there is no moisture left inside. First, make sure the machine is powered on with the handle on the side. This switch is to remain on unless there is an emergency or unless turned off by maintenance staff. Take a few moments to examine the machine. Visually check the hydraulic fluid level and check for any leaks coming from the fluid lines. Make sure all parts of the machine are in working order. The rods are not bent or damaged, and there are no loose bolts or nuts or cracks in any of the equipment. Make sure there is nothing in the way of the machine, and press the green pump start button. You will know the machine is energized when the button is illuminated. If the button does not light up, check the emergency stop button to see if it is engaged and switch it off. Flip the hydraulic switch on the control panel to see if it works. This controls the hydraulic jack for the fixture table that holds the cores and grills as they are expanded. Verify the rest of the functions on the panel are working properly. If you do find any irregularities with any part of the machine, notify your supervisor or lead and they will contact maintenance to fix the issue. You will also have to do some weekly maintenance to the machine. Every week you must drain the water condensate from the air lines. Simply open the valve on the bottom of the drain, wait for all the water to drain, then close the valve. The fittings on the ram plates must also be greased weekly. Grab the grease gun from the tool cabinet. To make this easier, lower the ram all the way so you can reach the fittings. Grease the fittings until some starts to come out so you know it is full, and wipe away the excess grease. Over-greasing can also be an issue, so be aware the fittings don't always need much grease depending on how much the machine has been operating, but be sure you are checking them weekly and filling out the maintenance checklist. Refer to the machine's operator maintenance checklist for more information on greasing the fittings as well as what else to maintain and how often to do so. Once you are sure the machine can be set up properly, move on to changing the bars for operation. These spacer bars help set the position of the ram head for the part you are making. There is a specific length bar needed for every length of tube you are expanding. As the first step in changing from one setup to another, always refer to the table posted on the machine for all the information you need to operate on that part. Match the number of the bar on the setup card with the part number or unit number on the routing slip that came with the parts. Additional information can be found on the blueprint attached to the routing slip. Ask your supervisor or lead for help if you are unsure if the information you are using is correct. In order to change the bars, power the control panel with the pump start button and fully lower the ram with the ram down button until you see the side clamps lock. Place one C-clamp on each side as shown. Loosen the 4 Allen head screws in the head clamp so it can move. With the screws loose and clamps in place, you can now raise the ram head along with the plates. This will allow you to remove the bars. Caution! If there is ever an emergency, immediately press the red emergency stop button to cut off power to the control panel. Make sure this is not pressed before moving on. Remove the old bars, return them to the storage racks, and place the new ones. Each is marked with a L and R, and you'll see where the metal has rubbed on the bars so you can be sure you are placing them correctly. Slowly lower the ram until the head is touching the bars and the clamps lock in again. Check to make sure the tops of the bars are as close to even with the ram head as you can get them. The bend on the bar must also be as close to straight with the middle of the head clamp as you can get it. Once the new bars are set and secure, retighten the ram head clamp Allen screws and then remove the 2 C-clamps. When you're done, fully lower the ram with the control panel. Let's take a few moments to review what we learned about changing bars. When changing bars, always refer to the setup card on the machine. Remember the Allen screws on the head clamp and the C-clamps for the ram. Line up the new bars with the middle of the head clamp. Lower the ram to the bars, make sure the side clamps lock again, then tighten the Allen screws and remove the C-clamps. With the new bars set, let's move on to changing the rods for the expander. Certain cores and grills require different size rods depending on their length and the material being used. On this side of the machine, you will only be dealing with aluminum fins and tubes to make grills for the front of trucks, so you will only be using the 7mm size rod. These rods are kept in storage racks along the side of the machine. Each has a piece called a swedger and a stripper sleeve on it. The swedger is for creating flares on the ends of the tubes. However, because these are only 7mm grills with no flares on the tubes, the rods on this side of the machine do not require swedgers. To be able to access the rods, raise the ram all the way using the Ram Up button. You will also want to take the metal rod next to the machine and press the lever for the large black depth adjustment screws. This will raise the screws to give you more room to be able to remove the rods. Grab the ladder kept in the area and bring it over to the front of the machine, as shown here. To remove the rods, grab the air gun from the tool chest. Climb the ladder to look at the rods and the rod adapters. Since the rods are 7mm, they are smaller than the holes in the plates, so you must use plastic bushings to help guide them through. Check to make sure there are no bushings missing as you are removing the rods. If you notice any missing, replace them with extras from the tool cabinet once the rods are removed. Notify your supervisor or lead when you have placed new bushings so they can make a tooling request to order more. When you are ready, turn the rod near the adapter and pull down to remove the adapter from its hooked position. Let it rest on the bushing below. Tighten a pair of vice grips onto the rod below the top plate. This makes sure the rod won't fall all the way out before you are ready for it. Use the air gun to loosen the rod adapter. Remove the adapter and place it to the side for later. Sometimes the set screws or pins on the adapter will break and the rod will get stuck in the adapter. If this happens, grab the bolt cutters from below the toolbox. Cut the rod below the adapter and take the adapter to your supervisor or lead. There should be extra adapters kept in the tool cabinet along with the extra plastic bushings. Double check that none of the adapters are bent as well. Descend from the top of the ladder and remove the rods from the bottom. To make this easier, press the rod back up slightly and turn the rod as you pull it out. Be careful not to drop the rods as you remove them. The impact can bend the rods or crack the rod ball ends. Continue removing all of the rods until you have them all out. Before inserting the rods, check again with the setup card and/or blueprint to see how many rods you need. If the card calls for 22 rods, you will need to place 11 on each side of the center line drawn on the machine. Place the rods along the back row of the plates where they were previously. To be able to easily insert the rods, you want to barely place the end of the rod into the first hole. Do not put any upward pressure on the rod, only push forward on it lightly until it straightens and starts to slide up into the rest of the holes. If you try to push up right away, the end will get caught on the sides and you will be unable to fully insert the rod. You may have to climb the ladder and place the rods through the bushings at each plate. Once you have the rods through the plates, reconnect them to the rod adapters by tightening the adapter back onto the rod using the air gun and vice grips to secure the rods. This is the opposite of what you did to remove the rods. Take a closer look at the adapters to be sure they are evenly attached to the rods. If they are not, take the adapter from the top plate for the rod in question and either tighten or loosen it, depending on how the adapters are lining up. In addition to the setup card on the machine, remember you can look at the blueprint for the part to see how many tubes are needed for that specific grill. Make sure the blueprint matches the part listed on the routing slip and verify you have the correct number of rods for the number of tubes to be expanded in the grill. This side of the machine, 46B, uses a single type of fixture table, also known as a gate. The table can be raised and lowered vertically using the hydraulic switch on the control panel. Lowering the table so it is sitting horizontally will allow you to insert the jig for the grill. Raise the fixture to the vertical position when the grill is ready for expansion. This side of the machine uses nest end stops for its nest blocks. Once you have the nest block inserted and secure, slowly lower the ram until the ball ends of the rods are below the top of the nest block. This is the depth the rods will be set for how far they will be inserted into the grill during expansion. Climb the ladder again and pull on the lever to set the large black depth adjustment screws. Keep pulling on the lever until the screws stop spinning. Verify the balls are still in the correct position. Make sure they won't pass too far into the nest block or the rods may get bent during expansion. If everything is still in position, you have successfully set the depth for the rods during expansion and are ready for operation. Make sure the rods and grill are set properly by taking one grill and placing it onto the gate and raising the gate. Lower the rods until they are close to the top of the tubes in the grill. Adjust the grill by moving it left or right and in or out until the rods line up with the tubes. Take a moment to oil the rods before slowly lowering the ram and rods into the grill to expand the tubes. Be on the lookout for any bent rods and slow down even more as the rods reach the bottom of the grill in case the rod depth was set incorrectly. Raise the ram until the rods are clear of the grill jig and inspect the grill for any defects. If there are none, the machine is ready for production. When you are finished, you do not have to remove the gate, but you must remove the nest blocks from the bottom of the machine when it is left alone for long periods of time. This is because the ram on the machine falls about 1 inch every hour due to gravity, so if the nest blocks are left in, the rods will be slowly lowered into the nest blocks and get bent. To avoid this damage to the rods, raise the ram fully anytime you are done operating. If you are not operating overnight, the rods should be okay. But if leaving the machine over the weekend or if you don't plan on operating for a while, remove the nest block to be safe. You can also leave a grill in the jig overnight and insert the rods into it to be sure they won't get damaged. Now, we'll go ahead and review this section on changing the rods. Use the setup card on the machine and the blueprint with the routing slip to determine the type of setup required for the part. Check for bent rods and adapters when replacing rods. Once the rods and adapters are attached, make sure they are attached evenly. Set the depth using the lines on the nest block. Remember to remove the nest blocks or place a grill in the jig if the machine will not be used for a long period of time. Let's take a few moments to review the information contained in this video by going over some evaluation criteria for machine setup in Workcenter 401. Number 1. The operator correctly identifies what the rod depth should be. This means they know how to set the rod depth for the machine. Number 2. The operator identifies the correct alignment of the fixture before operation. This means they know how to adjust the in and out and left and right alignment on the table fixture and nest block end stops before tightening the nest block. And number 3. The operator knows they can find the setup information for that part using the table posted on the front of the machine. That's all you need to know about machine setup in Workcenter 401 for the Grille Expand area. If you have any questions, be sure to ask your supervisor or coworkers for guidance, and thank you for your contribution toward making Red Dot a better company.